welcome to another episode of Crosstalk. My name is Kevin Tocci. I will be your host for the next 30 minutes. And the purpose of this program, as I hope that you have come to know over the past couple of years that we've been doing it. I think it's been longer than the past couple of years, but we've been doing this for a while now with the show. We thank everybody for tuning in and checking it out, and from time to time I see folks in the community and they enjoy it. And if you ever have an idea for a program or a concept for Crosstalk that you think we should kind of talk about or mull things over, WHCA television at gmail.com is the quickest way to drop me a line so I can hear your thoughts in regards to things to have on this program. Today's show is going to be an interesting program. As always, I'm always looking for ways to inform folks as to things that are going on in the community of the Whitman and Hanson. Those are the communities that we serve. It could be an upcoming event. It could be town meeting issues. It could be a political type thing, like an election. And I know we've had a number of candidates that have been on this program in the past 2 or 3 months because they're running for a state office, or they might be running for state rep or a county position. But today's show is actually going to be a unique show. We have a gentleman who is a volunteer here, but he's someone who has a very cool and unique interest. We have Mr. George Kirby, who is my guest, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice
Welcome.
to be here with you.
George is not only a World War II reenactor.
That's right.
But he is also a history buff and likes things in regards to World War II.
World War II, the 1940s particularly, though there's really no point in history I don't enjoy not reading about.
What is it about history that you like? I like asking people who like history and exploring it and reading up about stuff that has taken place.
It is, part of it does have to do with he who doesn't know his history is doomed to repeat it, or something close to that effect, whatever the quote may be. It's always interesting to go back and read about how the world was shaped by someone that was here, or not so much someone, a group of people or an entire nations that were here before I was.
Other cultures.
Other cultures, other countries, and even in the, sometimes in the, I dare say, rare occasion, the single man or woman that changed history.
What is it about World War II that fascinates you?
World War II was big for me growing up. As from a young age, it was never romanticized for me, but we grew up with all the movies. Yeah. So we grew up with all the little plastic soldiers, had boxes of those. We'd run out into the yard with them, play in the sandbox with them. Dad was always around to, or mom, dad, teachers were always around to explain it. Not romanticizing the war or anything about it, but it was, these are the people, this is when the country was really, this is when the country had its chance to define itself.
And we I think, from what I've learned, is that I think we united as a country, and we were out there doing things as a country, whether it was, folks back here in the country doing their part for the war effort, and those who, were 16, 17 years old, who might not have been old enough, but wanted to somehow find a way to fight for our cause.
Absolutely. Either whether that fight for, whether it be joining in the military branch of service or staying at home. You had kids 5, 6 years old that, of course, they can't go to work in a wartime factory, recycle cans, recycle everything that would come up. They'd work on the Victory Garden with mom on the home front.
Yep.
So even in some cases, it really seems this was the point in history where the country came together as a one group of people. It was the idea at that point, generally, from what I understand, was let's go. The country needs to go to war. We'll all do our part. It was even the people that even the young men that weren't 18, that weren't of age. You get stories all the time of men that would go out, lie about their age, and go to war. There was one guy, I think at one point he was local, unless he passed on recently, who went to war at 16.
Correct. Unusual. Not so much unusual, but it's something that that isn't usual to this day. I don't think we don't find that. It was a different time and a different place, but the need for people wanting to
do their part because it was the thing to do.
That's saying the very least. Absolutely.
It was the thing to do. It wasn't. You look at today's world. In today's world, it's more of a me society. And we actually, but you know what? We did have a moment where we did reunite.
Of course.
In 2001 during 9/11 that we came together, but
it seems to have burnt out to me.
The glue. There wasn't as much staying power in the glue that bonded us as to back a generation ago.
Of course, it's great that the patriotism we all did see and witness and ourselves participate in 2001 and the few years afterwards. But a lot like the 40s, it didn't last as long to me. Yeah. Well, it's a whole other end of politics, really not the forum for now. But to the 40s, you had an idea where the country's coming out of the Great Depression. Everyone, aside from the men in charge of the big companies, the men that ran the railroads, were all suffering together. Here, you can look at things in this time and date and say a lot of us are suffering pretty badly. There's not the cost of living's out of whack. The money being made's out of whack. There's a lot of people that are suffering, but it's not the second Great Depression. At that point, a lot of people were moving around, moving through the countries. The Dust Bowl area that was before the land was fixed up, the dust storms that came through tore up all the crops. The economy went straight down the tubes after World War I. There was a big buildup for World War I. Mm-hmm. All the money was made. People were in factories. World War I ended. World War I was the war to end all wars. Europe's been sorted out. We'll never have to fight again. That's it. Where did that get us? Got us to World War II after whatever it was that happened in the European nation again. The Nazi Party comes in and decides we can rewrite this thing the way we want to.
Right.
The last Great War was not the last Great War, unfortunately. It brought into a point, but I get the idea that after the first Great War, the people that were there for it, that generation, knew enough to to bring everybody else in. This happened once, we can do it again. We'll come together as a nation, we'll turn this out again, and this will be the second last Great War. So it did bring us together in an unfortunate event, an unfortunate turn of events, but it brought the country back together.
Well, from what my understanding of it is that we weren't necessarily wanting to get involved with what we were seeing was happening over in Europe with Germany. It wasn't until we were attacked on our home soil,
of course,
that it woke the sleeping giant.
Right. I can't speak for the men that were in charge at the time, but you're right.
Nor can I, right.
It was, let's just wait and see what's going to happen in Europe before we decide to do anything.
Right.
Let's try to stay out of this whole thing if we can. If anything, moral support, go Britain and England. Then it was, you're right, it was Japan coming after us at Pearl Harbor. And that was, at that point, Japan had no real goal in the European war. It was an attack launched on the U.S., and it was, by the way, we're part of the Axis powers now.
Right.
Of course, that gets back to Germany. Oh, they are? Okay. So it opened up two fronts, which fortunately went a lot better for us than it did for Germany in 1941 when it was Eastern Front, Western Front.
How often have you found yourself talking with, people who endured World War II, who fought in battles, and would kind of tell you? I mean, because I've heard over the years, I've heard some of the stories I've heard are almost you see the individual well up as they talk about guys that they left behind or battles that they were involved with, and you're like, wow, just wondering how they can still manage a smile on their face with what they endured.
It is, to answer your question as to how often I talk to these men and women, and even the women that were involved here in the production facilities.
Correct.
The answer is unfortunately not often enough. In this day and age, it being the year it is, being this amount of time, 70 years since the invasion of Normandy.
Right, yeah, we just recently celebrated, right.
The rate, I believe, last check was something around the rate of World War II veterans the world loses a day, both Allied, Axis, everybody else. Something around 25 World War II veterans a day are lost to old age or otherwise.
Right.
I've had my chance to talk to a few of them across different spectrums of the branches of service. Talked to plenty of guys in the Army Air Corps, and the Navy, the Marines.
great people. I think I've talked to a few of the German veterans, and even then, they have a story to tell. It's the soldiers that were part of the German army. A lot of them, I think it's fair to say, most of them were forced into it. It was, or even then, the American veterans you talk to, I think they have a real sense, or how they continue to smile, how they can tell their story without feeling bad about it, was they look at what could have been, or even consider what could have been, how the world could have been carved up differently, or how it would have definitely have been carved up differently had the war gone differently. As for, there's a lot of still living survivors in France and Belgium. A lot of areas. There's even some living civilians. Veterans of their wars. There's French resistance fighters that are still around. It's my first trip I had taken out to Europe as part of a World War II tour. We had met at one of our stops somewhere in France. It was a woman who had been, I'm not sure that she was a member of the French resistance, but a woman who was alive at the time of this. She had told us the last time she saw all these Americans in their green outfits and their wolves with their rifles and their armor, they had liberated her village. Wow. And she couldn't have been happier. On the other hand, we did run into a couple of people who weren't so happy to see us, whether it be, what are they doing here? Are they showing off, or are they back here for a reason? Why have they come back to do this again? Even as the liberators that we were, the liberators that the Americans were at that point. Some people just aren't happy to see you wherever you go.
When you're out and you're doing the World War II reenactments, what are some of the things that you make sure are as authentic as possible, so that people don't go, hey, that's not right?
That's a loaded question you've asked me. As the unit I belong to, the 1st Division, our goal is to be as authentic as possible. That means we ditched modern glasses have spectacles, the remakes of the 1940s glasses, the round Coke bottles. Wow. Ditch the digital watches. We go out with the round timepieces. Some of the guys have their period pocket watches with them. Nobody goes out with modern food. We go out into the field. The rare occasion we have the hot meal, that one day a weekend we're out there. Other than that, we eat out of cans and boxes. And these cans, we take the time to strip labels off of cans, paint them green.
P38.
The P38 opener, is bust our fingers opening like that. And it's not us going out just, let's get a can of something we're going to look forward to after this anyway. We'll go out and get a can of cold corned beef hash. We'll get a can of cold Spam.
So you're not out there with the modern day MREs?
Certainly not out there with even a styrofoam cooler or the modern MREs.
Okay.
We beyond that, a lot of the better reenactments we end up doing are the ones the public doesn't see, the ones that are really for the reenactors themselves. It's these events that our unit will go out into the trees, dig a hole where there's rocks and roots and bugs and animals and dirt, dig a hole and sleep in it for an entire weekend.
Goodness.
And we'll have anyone else that happens upon us, wow, you guys live really tough.
Sure.
This is how it worked. We try to keep this as authentic as possible.
I guess and just so folks know that you're not just some guy who's, hey, I'm enamored with World War II. You're also somebody who is a
combat veteran myself. Yes, I served 4 years in the armed service. I was in the Air Force for 4 years, and during part of that time in my deployment, I did work with the Army in some close locations. Some people will tell you, "Oh, Air Force, that wasn't hard work." It was. We did do hard work, and it was a lot of fun. Well, fun to the point where places to go, people to see, food to eat.
Right.
It was, I looked at it when I turned 18. I looked at life here in the country and said, I've lived here for 18 years, thinking, doing, and saying whatever I've wanted within, of course, legal reasons.
Right.
Why don't I give something back to the country? It's one thing to just give blood or donate some time somewhere, go into the Boy Scouts, no problem, but I want to do something that will not so much matter, but I want to do something to repay everything I've gotten from this country so far.
So how did you get involved? Was it something that was online? You saw something, or did you have a friend who's like, hey, we have a group of reenactors? How did it happen?
I had, back before I can even remember, Dad was involved with Civil War reenacting. Dad would leave on a Friday afternoon, and we'd ask Mom, where's Dad going? Oh, he's going out to do a Civil War thing. Okay. Dad would take time off of work from the fire department. We understood easily. There were nights where Dad wouldn't be home. He's at the fire department. Mm-hmm. He'd disappear for weekends, though. He'd leave in funny clothes with a funny rifle on him, and he'd come back reeking of dirt, sweat, and campfires. Dad wasn't at work. What was he doing? It wasn't for a while that we understood Dad's going out to do his Civil War thing. Well, what's a Civil War thing? It was explained that it's reenacting. He wears all the old clothes. He sleeps in a tent. He sleeps on top of straw in a canvas bag. Wow, that's really strange. At a certain age, he had clothes put together for my brother and I, period clothes of the 1800 Civil War. We'd go to some events with him. We'd do the camp family. He'd have his wife there, the kids. We'd stay there with him for the weekend. That was great. Dad ran into a friend there that said, hey, you really seem to like this. Oh, yeah, I love it. Civil War's a lot of fun. Have you ever thought of World War II? No, I've never thought of that. His friend would tell him, you should try World War II. It's just like this, except more fun. Dad loved this to begin with. What's more fun than Civil War reenacting?
Right.
So his friend outfits him with all the gear, gives him a rifle. Dad, this is to the point where we understand Dad does a Civil War thing. He disappears for some weekends, comes back smelling of a campfire. Okay, no problem. We come home from, maybe it was school one Friday afternoon. Dad says, see you guys later. I'm going to do World War II. Okay, and it's just, we accepted it. It was, all right, Dad does Civil War, Dad's going to do World War II. Great. Dad disappears for the weekend, comes back, reeking of a campfire, sweat and dirt. So, Dad, how was it? That was the most fun I've ever had. Just wait until you're 16, you'll love it. Oh, okay. And this was all these years it was building up. Maybe it was 6 years he'd tell me about it. Oh, we did this, it was great, it was great. Well, Dad, how's it different from Civil War? Oh, well, Civil War, you use all the old tactics. You stand on line, and you all fire at the same time.
Yeah.
We were out in the field. We had it set up, no problem. So we all got up, fired around, and I stood there and waited for the command to reload. Oh, wait, I don't have to wait anymore.
Right.
So it was a whole new set of tactics, and he went back and forth. Oh, it was so much fun. These guys know what they're doing. It's just like Civil War camp. We do everything by the books. It's all the way they were doing it. Okay. 16 years old, Dad says, hey, we'll get out of here for a weekend. We'll go up to Odessa, New York, and we'll do the Odessa event. Okay. If anyone asks, you're 18. Okay. Nobody's going to ask, but if anyone asks, okay, no problem. This is one of the no spectator events. This is one of the events that's for the reenactors. This is the event where you sleep in holes, you eat out of cans. Some other guys will go up, they'll go out at night for a hot meal, they'll sleep in tents and they'll sleep in bags. No, these guys go out, they clear the woods, they dig holes, they sleep in them. This is how we do it. Is this how everyone does it? No, don't ask questions like that. Okay, just go with it. All right, went with it, had a blast. Come back
hooked since.
Hooked since. Come back that Monday, go to school. So what'd you do all weekend? I went to New York. What were you doing in New York? I was doing World War II stuff.
I can't tell you anything else.
Stuff. So it was the whole thing. It's to the point now where I brought a few of my friends with me to do these events at Battleship Cove. I'm trying to get more into it. Even the internship I run now, the guy got wind of me doing this, and now it's kind of the running bit with me. It's that weirdo intern that does his World War II thing.
Okay. What, if you were to kind of look at probably the one thing that we see all the time, we see movies that are written and they're true stories based on, and we've probably watched them dozens of times. Do you watch any of the World War II movies and try to see how they match up, how the directors matched it up correctly or incorrectly?
For a big part, it's kind of a curse now, where I can watch a movie and say, yep, that's not right, and pick it apart. Well, that's not right.
Yep.
Uniform's incorrect. That's not the right rifle. That pistol wasn't.
It's almost like a game.
It is, yes. It bothers a lot of people to no end when they try to watch a movie with me. A lot of times, we're gonna watch this movie, but I don't want to hear about all the things that are wrong. On the other hand, a lot of the earlier movies, Battleground. I'm sorry, Combat. Great TV show. The movie Battleground. Great movie, made just after the Korean War. Yeah. A lot of the extras are World War II vets. So it's all the leftover clothes, all the leftover rifles and vehicles actually in the movie. Saving Private Ryan, good movie. The first 10 minutes, great movie. After that, it's Hollywood. But the closest thing I've gotten recently is Band of Brothers.
Love
As far as I can tell from the guys I've talked to that were there doing it, 101st Airborne, 82nd, infantry that came on the beach, Normandy. It's the closest thing they've gotten since Normandy to it. It's the closest thing they'd prefer to be since Normandy.
Well, you had Tom Hanks worked on that.
Tom Hanks, of course, did that.
Spielberg, I think, had I want to say Spielberg might have had a hand in it. There was a collaboration.
Of course there was.
It was either Spielberg or another major filmmaker who collaborated with Hanks and made it as authentic. It's probably one of the best miniseries that I've ever watched.
Hardly a show you can shake a stick at in regards to correct.
Right.
At the same time, the movie Patton, great movie. A lot of it's very correct if you discount the Russian tanks that are in place of the German tanks. A lot of the movie, well, it's all that was available. You don't go out and see. There's 3 operational Tiger tanks still in the world. Right. One of them's in the Imperial War Museum, London. Right. It's not exactly, you can't fill a whole battlefield with 3
tanks. That's a tank, who cares? Just stick it in there.
George C. Scott, one of his problems with the movie was the opening speech. Talks to the director, says, well, I don't want this at the beginning of the movie. Why? If you put this at the beginning of the movie, I've got to get the rest of my acting up to par with this. The speech itself, patched together from a few different Patton speeches, but done anyway. So where's it going to be in the movie? Oh, we'll put it in the middle for you, George. Okay, no problem. Goes to see the movie, it's in the beginning. Not a very happy man, but the rest of the movie, with minor, again, Hollywood embellishments, fairly correct movie.
Yeah. Of the Band of Brothers miniseries, what was the most compelling or captivating for you? What part of it, where you watched, you were riveted by the action, or not action is the wrong word, but the storyline, or watching what unfolded for that particular episode?
I think it's kind of tough for me, as the whole show was good, but the one part that always gets me is the liberation of the concentration camps.
Yeah.
Understandably, I don't think anyone could really sit through that without kind of maybe turning their face away from the TV a little bit. It was something the 101st and the 82nd and a whole bunch of other...
kind of stumbled upon.
What do we have here? Now what? That's always the hardest ones, and the ones I'd like to skip, but because I'm dedicated to watching the TV series, I won't skip them. I don't enjoy watching them. I understand it's part of the history. It was part of the war. But it's the one part of the show that always... all right, let's get through this part. Hate this part. Hate this story.
Right, and the guy who, the individual who played Winters throughout, as he rose up the ranks from running up Karahi to at the end, where the individual who was his who was his commanding officer ended up outranking him, and when he wouldn't salute him. Yeah, that's right, and you salute the rank, not the soldier.
So, from personal experience, yes.
Just seeing stuff like that, or it was just so fascinated how they were able to, and then having the different individuals who actually were,
Does it sound strange that that's my favorite part of the series?
I as well, me as well, when seeing them talking about the certain things that they had to do.
To know that they were in studio, that they saw this series being put together, being made before it went to TV. The men that were actually there, the men that this show is about, watched it and said, that's correct, use my image for this.
Right.
And to an extent, it's my understanding that they okayed the whole thing. Right. We want this guy to play you.
Right.
Well, let's see him do it. Okay, he can pull me off.
Right. I gotta say that, and the one guy of all the people that I was impressed with as an actor himself, and I probably wouldn't have taken seriously up until that point, was Donnie Wahlberg.
It took me a while actually to realize, is that one of the Wahlberg brothers? Yeah. It's not that it caught me off guard as to, I never thought he could act like this, but not who I would have expected to be in Band of Brothers. So that's one of the Wahlberg boys, isn't it?
Yep. Do you know what famous talk show host made a cameo in it?
I do not right off.
Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon was in there.
Jimmy Fallon. I'm not sure. It was a later episode. Jimmy Fallon. It kind of pulled up in a Jeep. This was I want to say it was when they were pulling back from, there was a pullback where they were switching out troops, and Jimmy Fallon had pulled up in a Jeep and had a little bit of a conversation.
I will have to look for that
Yeah,
now.
so
Since you brought up the whole Band of Brothers trivia, Simon Pegg of Shaun of the Dead fame also made a cameo.
No kidding.
As an American, oddly enough.
Huh.
His American accent, for a Brit, pretty good.
How about as far as any other World War II movies that you can watch over and over and over?
I grew up Bridge Too Far. I grew up with the 2-tape VHS copy of Bridge Too Far, and I would play that nonstop on end. Like some kids will go through their Disney movies, tape after tape after tape, watched it a million times, drive mom and dad crazy. I drove mom crazy, wearing out the VCR with A Bridge Too Far. Dad had no problem. Oh, Bridge Too Far. I'd get home from work, sit right down with me and watch it.
Yep.
But I would play that movie over and over and over.
I have two favorites. P2-109.
Yes.
Love that movie. Of course, depiction of our eventual president, John F. Kennedy, and how he rose up to the ranks and was out, with the PT boats and that, and The Great Escape.
Great Escape is a wonderful movie. More so that it's based for the most part on a true, well, of course, based on a true story.
Yep.
But for the most part, very, very linear in how things worked.
Right.
Tom, Dick, and Harry, the tunnels. I think what was the only embellishment on there? Really, the motorcycle escape, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Other than that, this movie was practically spot on.
Yeah. And I could watch that over and over still to this day. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left in regards to this, our conversation. Well, I want to thank you for,
of course, pleasure,
asking me well, not asking me, but being able to sit down as I asked you to be a part of this and discuss.
Oh, I could do this all day.
I know you can. And we have actually talked about maybe having you come back. You actually have some stuff, some reenactment stuff that maybe either you sit down with me and have a conversation with another show, or maybe we could coerce you as a volunteer to maybe do your own show in that realm of maybe reenacting, certain, military or wars and stuff like that.
It's hard to do a one-man show like that, but I would be more than happy to come back along and go over gear, food. Food itself is an hour program.
What if somebody wanted to, and I think I got to ask this just to kind of justify the program, what if somebody wanted to get involved with a World War II reenactment group or Civil War? Is there ways to find those groups and get involved, or is it a matter of you get another right people?
It's to an extent, it really depends on the type of group you want to hang around with. There are some groups that will take anyone that comes in. It's not to sound like a private club, but our division looks for guys that look the part.
They want to be authentic.
Right, authentic as possible. They don't want the guy that's 6.5 feet tall. It was, especially coming out of the Depression, a lot of the guys were real small, thin guys. It's some groups, on the other hand, aren't too big into it. If you want to show up and have a good time, have fun, they'll of course let you in.
Well, George, I want to thank you so much for being my special guest for this episode of Crosstalk. And again, if you have any ideas for future shows, things that you want to see, maybe there's an upcoming event, you can always drop me a line, WHCA television @gmail.com. For my friend and our volunteer here at WHCA, George Kirby. And of course, our friend out behind the glass, putting this all together, Paul Watson. I'm Kevin Tocci, and that's another Crosstalk. Have a great day.